morning and welcome to a new series that we're doing at Keystone called God Is. And the objective of this series is to identify who God is. Now, we're not going to be able to take all of the time to identify and unpack all the characteristics of God. That would take lifetimes to do. What we're hoping to do with the series is get the ball rolling and create in you a hunger to find out more about who God is and what that would mean if you learned for yourself more about who God is, because that's the journey that we need to be on as followers of Christ. And so this series is going to hopefully kickstart some of that for some of you. You know, we live in a world that is changing rapidly. I mean, it is just the changes that are happening decade to decade. It's actually not now. It's moving from year to year, the change and multiplied change. One of the things that's changed is in the past 25 years. 25 years ago, there were very few people who had any idea what email was, and now I've read that email's for old folks. I came across an article and it was saying how email is now considered a little too slow. You know, that it's the new snail mail kind of way to communicate, and everybody's kind of gone to messaging or Twittering or even like, you know, the Facebook. And it's true. I've discovered in working with the teens that if you want to get in touch with them, you dare not email them, because the young people have abandoned email. It's only for us old folks now. And I came across an article that said the very same thing. It said email is for older folks, and it's no longer the new wave. It's actually kind of passé and getting kind of old. And I was like, oh man, that's sad, but that's the reality. Then I noticed when that article was published. It was published in 2006. I'm even 3 years behind that knowledge. I mean, that's the way things are changing, and things are constantly on the move, especially now with the economy the way it is. In the business sector, things are changing rapidly, and things that used to be American icons aren't even American anymore. And all the change is happening, and it's happening behind the scenes, and many of us aren't aware of it, but things are changing. And I decided I wanted to kind of highlight this by giving you a little bit of a quiz. And so what I'm going to show you is some American icons of business, and see if you can guess who owns them now. All right, we'll start with first Holiday Inn. Holiday Inn, it's kind of an American company, right? Wrong. Owned by England now. And then there's 7-Eleven, where you buy your Slurpees. Who owns 7-Eleven? Japan owns 7-Eleven. How about Trader Joe's? You know, the hippie store, the hippie place, you know, it's Southern California, you kind of have a beach feel to it. Yeah, who owns Trader Joe's? Germany owns Trader Joe's, specifically the Aldi Corporation. Have you ever been to Aldi's? About a world away from Trader Joe's. How about Bud Light? You know, they even have red, white, and blue in their logo. Who owns Bud Light? Belgium owns Bud Light. And then you have Church's Chicken. Church's Chicken, fried southern chicken, right? American kind of thing. Who owns Church's Chicken? Yeah, the First Islamic Bank of Bahrain owns Church's Chicken. Very true, very true, very true. Pennsylvania Dutch. There's a company that has, that sells mushrooms and things like that. Pennsylvania Dutch, America's favorite mushroom in the little United States in there. You'd think that was an American product, right? No, it's a product of China. It's a product of China. And then Gerber, a good Michigan company. Gerber is now a part of Nestle, which is owned in Switzerland. Then you have American Idol. It has American in its name. Who owns American Idol? Germany, the land of David Hasselhoff, owns American Idol. So we can continue to blame Germany for a lot of things. All right, Comp USA. All right, there should be an assumption, right? That Comp USA is owned by a United States company. No, it's owned by Mexico. Owned by Mexico. How about this one? Swiss Miss. Guess who owns Swiss Miss? America owns Swiss Miss. Just to make sense. Not only are there companies that have, their ownership is in other countries, where stuff is made has now shifted. I mean, you have Wrangler and Levi's, quality American products made in Mexico. And then you have Honda and Toyota, and they're made in America. And so everything's kind of shifting, and it's kind of hard to know what's what anymore. I mean, the whole idea, the whole theme, Buy American, I agree with that. I think it's important that we support our own economy and our own workers and things like that. I think that's really an important thing, and I try to do that. I didn't go overseas to buy this outfit. It was bought in America. But my shirt is from Vietnam. My undershirt is from Canada. My pants are from Mexico. My shoes are from China. My socks are from Indonesia. And yes, I checked. My underwear is from Pakistan. If I was required to only buy American, I would be inappropriately dressed for Sunday morning. Right? And so would many of you. As a matter of fact, I know it's going to happen tonight. Many of you are going to find out exactly where your clothes came from, But it's one of those things where we look at the way things are in this world, and the way things look is not the way they are. As a matter of fact, if you can find a label that says Made in America, that means it's only has to be a slight majority made in America. It could be pretty much assembled in America and be made in America. So things aren't quite what they seem. And if it's happening that way in our culture, and if it's happening that way in the business sector, imagine what it's like on the spiritual side of things. And many of you know. There are some of you who are here today because you started a journey of going, now, I need to understand who God is, and I don't. There are others of you that are just hoping that God is what he was when you were growing up, and that doesn't change. And yet we're faced in a time in our culture where our perceptions of God are being challenged. Because we're moving from a Judeo-Christian society to really a post-Christian society. And there are a lot of other influences that begin to speak into who God is and our understanding of God. And so we want to take some time and focus on who God is. Because if we hope to be Jesus to our world, which is just the series we just came through, if I was Jesus, if I was Jesus in this world, one of the requirements of being like Jesus to our world is knowing God the Father. Because Jesus said, I know the Father. I and the Father are one. When the Father says jump, I say how high. When he says go here, I go there. I know my Father's heart. That was the message of Christ. And if we hope to be like him in a world that needs to see him, we've got to be like God. Well, in order to be like God, you got to know who God is. And there are tons of influences that are trying to change the definition of who God is, or trying to supply different information. And what makes it worse is we're at a time right now in our economy, and we're at a time right now in our culture where it appears God's just not on the ball like he used to be. Because for American Christians, we associate God with good things. That if good things are happening, God's involved. But when bad things start to happen, we begin to question, is God really here? Where is God in this? When tragedy strikes, it's not the question, is there a God? It's the question, where'd God go? Because as Western American Christians, God's in the good stuff. And he kind of takes a vacation on the bad stuff. And we try to reconcile that. And I tell you, we're going through it right now. There are people going, man, where was God when I lost my job? Where was God when my family blew up? Where was God when that plane went down in the Atlantic Ocean this past week? Where was God in that? And we kind of have this sense that, man, either God's not here or I don't understand how God's supposed to work, because bad things aren't supposed to happen to good people. And would a good God, is God really good? Would a good God let something like that happen? And we begin to wrestle with the question of just what kind of God we're dealing with.